Come to you and thank you for this day that you have made. We rejoice in today and we are glad in it. We are glad that we have the opportunity for life. We are glad we have the opportunity to right wrongs. We are glad we have the opportunity to grow in knowledge and understanding of you, but also of our fellow man. Father, we thank you as a commission that you have bestowed upon us the honor of leadership, and we do not take that lightly. Remind us every day that this is not about us. It is about the people that we serve and the God that we serve. Father, we thank you for this meeting. We ask that you lead, guide, and direct us, and that we will continue to always love the Lord our God with all of our heart, all of our soul, and all of our strength, and that we will love our neighbor as ourself. Amen.
Good morning.
We got a new face beside me. I was going to ask you to introduce her.
Yes, sir. Next to you is our new county attorney, Michael Armistead. He comes to us from Choctaw County, where he most recently served as chairman of the county commission and probate judge. So he brings a world of experience to us, and we're glad to welcome him. His office is over near Kendall and me, and he'll be here every day.
Well, thank you, Florence. Just want to thank the chairman and the commission. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of the Montgomery County Commission team.
Today, our visitors are Sheriff Cunningham, Assistant Director Shipman from Community Corrections, our Grant Administrator Regina Walker, Deputy Administrator Kendall Anderson, Director Eris Beasley with Helping Montgomery Families Initiative, and attorneys Terry Reynolds and Susan Kennedy with Levitate Legal will join us virtually. Items to be considered during the formal session. It's an amendment number 3 with Eagle Cleaning Service to extend the contract until June 30th, 2023. Amendment number 3 to the Montgomery Armored Car Service to extend the contract until March 31. Consider miscellaneous appropriations to agencies. Are there any items to add? Consider miscellaneous appropriations to education.
Yes, first I have one, $4,000 to Jeff Davis High for youth in government.
Consider miscellaneous appropriations from designated revenue. Consider a bid award for the HVAC chiller and cooling tower replacement at the Montgomery County Courthouse. As you recall, at the last meeting, you all discussed this and agreed to go ahead and put it on the formal agenda in hopes that some value engineering could be done. Kendall can report on that.
Good morning. After sitting down and receiving some items that were provided by the bidder, and after talking with the architect, Patrick Addison, it was determined that everything that they considered that might be available for valued engineering were going to be things that were going to be needed in the project. Therefore, we are recommending that we proceed, that the project be awarded to Bradley, excuse me, to enter into a construction contract for the bid amount, which was $9,181,700.
No reductions found in that.
No, these were all things that, if they're not done now, they're gonna have to be done in a year, 2 years. So we might as well go ahead and knock everything out now.
I mean, that was, my understanding was, we weren't talking about reducing. What was going to be done was
Right.
finding a more
more cost-effective way to do
getting it
things,
done.
and so those savings were, like I said, we're gonna have to go back in and do these things in a year, 2 years, so it's really not gonna be a savings.
I hope that's a solid figure.
Yes, sir.
This project was bid through normal channels, I would imagine, the procurement process.
Yes, sir.
And the only people who were interested were Bradley.
Yes, sir.
It's kind of specialized work. Not a lot of people do it.
Yes, sir.
Next item is number 9, consider position fill request for the detention facility for a corrections officer and 2 corrections officer corporals. Consider a position fill request for the district attorney's office for a legal support assistant. Consider position fill request for the engineering department for a county traffic control technician 1 and a civil engineer tech 2. Consider a position fill request for information systems for an IT technician network infrastructure. Consider a position fill request for the personnel department for a senior analyst. Consider position fill request for the sheriff's office for a deputy sheriff corporal and a deputy sheriff trainee. Consider travel training requests for appraisal, community corrections, the county commission, engineering, personnel, sheriff, tax and audit. And that's all. Sheriff Cunningham.
Good morning. Y'all can do better than that. Good morning. Good morning. All right. All right. I think,
You don't know what you're there for, do you?
huh?
You don't know what you're there for.
I know. I think Florence sent you all the stuff in our, in your packet. On the, pay plan for the, jail. Carmen's sitting here, and I submitted to you all what they had already did their study and came back with. So I'm here to answer any questions.
I had a question for Cheryl, but she wasn't in, and I can get that cleared up.
Okay.
The impact that something like this would have on,
Well, I think Sheriff Cunningham reached out to Carmen. She didn't have time to do that right now, but I think she just sent that information last week, so I,
you didn't get any of it?
yeah, but there's, I think that came Thursday,
Third.
so I haven't looked at it,
Yeah.
the financial impact. No, I agree.
Yeah. We really need to have that done.
Yeah, how long before we can get that information?
Well, yeah, Carmen,
Carmen?
oh, you're not doing? Yeah, I sent them that letter.
It's the data they have, we don't have that data. They have that data. I sent them how they would make the projections from it. Who'd you send it to? I sent it to the sheriff. Okay.
Yeah, and I forwarded to Florence and to you all.
I saw both of them. I think what she's talking about is the second one she sent, that was showing how it would be implemented, but that was my question. I don't think we can do anything until after we hear from you.
So who is going to give us that information?
Cheryl, I guess they're gonna send it to her.
You have to do it?
Yeah.
And these current recommendations, Sheriff, line up with the law enforcement throughout the state of Alabama?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But I want you all to understand too now, don't just say in the state of Alabama. You can't do apples and oranges with most county jails. We gotta realize we have an infirmary, we have everything in-house, where most jails don't. So, where we would send somebody out, where they would send somebody out, we wouldn't.
But is that related to the salaries?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, we say apples and oranges, and is it related to everybody else in the state? Yeah.
And your director over at the detention facility, is that the gentleman that we just brought?
No, nah, that's Scott. He's at the youth facility.
Okay.
Dr. Holmes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So you're gonna get that for us? the-
Yeah, I'll get with
Run the
Cheryl today.
numbers.
I'll get with her today so that we can move this on. And we'll have it to you by the next meeting.
Okay. So we'll hold off to the next meeting so we can get those numbers.
I want to see the impact.
The impact. But I know just from us looking at the actual numbers and with the staff shortage and the amount of overtime, I don't think it's gonna be a major impact.
That's what I wanna see, cause I,
And that's what we'll get from Cheryl.
yeah, it can't be a whole lot of difference by the time you're paying overtime and what
Yeah.
you're doing now.
It amounts to roughly a 10%
Yes, sir.
overall across the board. That's significant.
Yes, sir.
So we'll look at it.
Other than that, anybody got any other questions? Hey, I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'm sorry, now we'll hear from Community Corrections.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm here for waived rule items, requesting an irregular salary increase for a community correction technician position that we're trying to hire for. He has 12 years case manager experience with Cauthen. It's a position that we've been trying to fill for 6 months. He currently makes $42,000, but he will accept 40.
Field out today, sick?
Sir?
Field out today?
Yes.
You say the position's been vacant for 6 months?
Approximately 6 months, yes, sir. Since August sometime.
And
last
who's
year.
been fulfilling,
Sir?
who's been fulfilling those duties during that vacancy?
We
Or who
have-
are fulfilling those duties, I
We
guess?
have, Ms. Shipman, she's been doing it till we get somebody to fill it permanently.
What's the impact on your budget? This is already in your budget?
Yes, sir.
Did the board approve this?
To my knowledge, yes.
Anybody here on the board? Yeah, Sheriff? You did talk about it? It's been approved? You know, I guess what jumps at you is somebody taking a $2,000 pay reduction to go to work for the county.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's.
That's
Well,
what kind of jumps at you.
He basically said he do a lot of traveling at his job now. He's gone a lot, so I guess it's more convenient for him to be here and take that pay cut.
I think we could, agree or disagree on the merit of the request. I just think that the commission needs to consider the piecemeal manner we've been playing with salaries over the past year, maybe. I don't know, that might be, that's just a guesstimate. But we've done this, we've had a lot of requests like this, and we know the current climate of labor shortage. It's hard to get people, it's hard to get good people, especially in law enforcement, corrections field. It's difficult. I mean, the DA's dealing with it. It's difficult. I think we need to take a more comprehensive approach to our salaries instead of, again, this piecemeal. People have been coming a lot to us. Hey, I want to hire this person for a little bit more money. Hey, can we change this? Hey, can we change that? And not that these requests don't have merit, but I think as a commission, we need to take a step back and consider how we're handling this. Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
And the reason we need to consider it, of course, is it has a domino effect. You do it for one, but you don't do it for another. You do it here, but you don't do it there. You're going to have disgruntled employees. You're going to have confusion. You're going to have irregularities in the pay scales across the board. Carmen?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
We are in the process of doing a pay study. We plan to have the results to you where we're looking at the entire pay plan. It should be completed by March so that you all will have time to consider it in your budget preparations. The other thing that I want to speak to that I'm not sure if everybody has a clear understanding on, The way the pay plan is designed is that if you start at step 1, you are minimally qualified. So if you have sizable amount of experience, it should not be the expectation that you start at step 1. So someone coming into the job that has more than what's minimally required, is highly qualified, it's not unusual for them to start above step. So a lot of the times when they do come to you and ask for that, it's because of somebody who exceeds the minimum qualifications for the position. So you have to look at the steps within the pay plan as a whole, and not that everybody who starts on the job should start at step 1. That's more so for someone who is minimally qualified.
You know, that's been my understanding of it. I think the real question is that we should be thinking about, if that's a concern, it's not for me, but if it is a concern, is whether or not we want to consider these requests. If we're going to leave it up to the managers, or if the commission want to pass on it. I think that the reason why we do consider them, and they bring them before us, because it affects the budget, and we're interested in that impact. It's always been my understanding is that's the reason why, and that's usually the justification, more experience than coming in at an entry level. But the real question for this commission is whether or not we want to continue to make these decisions. You know, not whether or not these decisions shouldn't be made or not. I don't think you can just say across the board, no. You know, you hire somebody step 1, come on in. Somebody's got to make a decision on what step. And I don't have a problem with the managers making the recommendation to this commission and us considering it. I think our decisions have been consistent in terms of the qualifications. If I'm a no vote, if you come to me and the qualifications don't match the request, and the impact is too adverse on the budget, there's no clear explanation. I mean, that's the way I look at these items. So I think the real question for us is whether or not we want to continue to have these brought before us, or if we want to leave them up into the hands of the managers.
What was the salary of the person who vacated the seat? It's been vacated 6 months.
It was.
What step were
30
they at?
30, it was 36,000.
The person that vacated
Yes,
it?
sir. And the coming in, his salary is 35, and he was making 42, so, you know, we weren't expecting him to come in at no 35,000.
I don't have a problem with hiring at 40,000. It just kind of jump at you when somebody come take a $2,000 pay drop. But you stated he want to.
Yeah, I mean, people do it all the time. If they want, because they choose flexibility and quality of life, and so they switch jobs. I've done it a couple times over the course of my career. I've gone backwards in pay because I had a more flexible job. He said he didn't want to travel so much. So
I'm
that's
satisfied
not
with that.
unusual at all.
I'm satisfied with that explanation.
You gotta look at the benefits too. The county has very good benefits that we overlook sometimes. So,
Yeah, I'm satisfied with the explanation on that. It's just something that jumped out.
the next agenda.
He asked for waive rules.
Oh,
He had asked it
I think-
be a waive rule item in order to
Any-
expedite bringing him on.
Any objection to waiving rules? All right. We're
So
good.
that will be a waive rule item.
Yes, ma'am.
Regina Walker.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have 2 quick items. I think, which one is first? Firehouse subs. We're all aware of the injury DeMar Hamlin suffered several weeks ago. So with that in mind, Parks and Rec Director and I got together and wanted to take a proactive approach because we do, as a county, offer youth and adult sports. So would like your permission to submit a grant to Firehouse subs to be able to add AEDs to our athletic program.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we might want to have Mike think about this and look at this. It's one thing to be, and it's great to do that.
Yes, sir.
But the problem is, along with that come expectations and duties. I mean, if you got one, and you only get one, and you should have had one here, then why didn't you have one there? In other words, I guess, when you undertake to carry out a function, then you gotta go all in on the function. And it might be a little bit more than this grant. It might open us up to some liability, just that we tried to do it, but we didn't do all that we should have done. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
James, if we get these defibrillators, I know like in the ballparks here in Montgomery, we've had defibrillators at every ballpark for many, many years. They were very similar through a grant application, and it was provided to us. And we went through training as a board. There was training that we had to go through as a board. I know most of these defibrillators are very self-explanatory. When you open the box, you turn it on, it walks you through every step you have to take. But we did have training. Will there be some training for
We would do that.
the various volunteers?
Yes, we'll, staff and also the coaches as well. We'll have to go
As
through
any
training.
coaches had to go through it.
Right, correct.
How much is the grant?
It depends on how many they give us. We got a price quote. They're about $1,500 a piece.
How
and
many of them would you?
We're asking for 3.
Yeah. I don't know. The only question that came up for me was
It's the
whether or not
liability piece.
it creates any exposure.
Yeah, maybe
Maybe it doesn't, but that's my, if it doesn't create any exposure, I'm all right with it. But
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, we will get with Michael
Yeah,
and,
we'll ask
okay.
Michael to look into that, and then we'll put it on the next agenda unless there's more discussion about it.
Sounds good. I have one more, proactive again. AARP, American Association of Retired People. We would like your permission to submit a grant to them. One of the things they fund are activities that improve the livability of a community. And so we want to replace the raised bed gardens at the Flatwood Community Center. But with this grant, it will enable us to be able to do elevated raised bed gardens so that we can accommodate people at various levels of mobility. And that is one of the things that I know James says some of the seniors really would like to do. They want the garden back. So it's an opportunity to possibly provide that.
You have a dollar amount for that, Ms. Walker?
We are getting quotes from master gardeners and other people who deal with this because we want something that's going to be, that won't deteriorate in a couple of years. So we're trying to work with them and their experience and what they've done. So the grant ceiling is $50,000, but we will get back with you and let you know what dollar amount we come up with.
I appreciate you all for being proactive. on
You're
this.
welcome.
Yes.
Thank you, Regina.
Thank you.
So that'll be next agenda.
Yes.
Well, having brought up Flatwood, this would be a good opportunity for Kendall to give you an update, as you requested at the last meeting, on Flatwood Community Center.
Excuse me, we discussed the rebuilding of Flatwood Community Center with Barganier, Davis, and Williams as they provided plans for the additions and renovations that were done in 2020. If the commission wishes to move forward with this firm, we will ask them to provide a contract to be discussed at the next meeting.
I'm good with moving forward. I want to get this going. Vice Chairman Sankey.
Of course,
it's your
we want to
district.
get it going. I'm just wondering, does that need to be an agenda item or
Well,
at this point?
probably we would like to present the contract first.
You all would need to approve the contract like we do with any public works project.
Okay. And I'd like to meet with you and Florence perhaps, and whoever's involved in the conversation with the architecture firm.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So we'll have a contract to present at the next meeting.
Okay.
Now we'll hear from Director Eris Beasley with Helping Montgomery Families.
got my seat, man.
Good morning, commissioners.
Morning.
Good morning, like the sheriff said, good morning. Let me be honest with you, this is my first time here in this capacity, so I'm a little bit nervous. I'm one of those ones that's transparent, but I'm coming to you this morning to ask for your continued support of Helping Montgomery Families initiative that started back in 2007, and we are on the cuff of celebrating 15 years of our program here in the city of Montgomery. Alabama. I have more information that I can share with you. I know the contract has been presented, and one change that's been made, the superintendent of Montgomery Public Schools has signed the contract. I think the one that was presented, we had not received that document back, but we are ready to proceed. I want to say to you that we are strong, and we are continuing to work with our students in Montgomery County Public Schools. COVID hurt. But now that the children, the students are in school daily, we have been busy. I want to say to you, we have 40 assessments on children within Montgomery Public School System scheduled for us to assess and review and to direct to services in the community so they can go to school and be successful. So I will stop there, bearing any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
This is an initiative and an organization that I've really supported from the very beginning. The work that they do in our schools and in our community is very, very important. But one thing that I really miss, and I hate that Daryl's not here today, but you used to have this annual report where you did a press conference and you actually reported the numbers and had some examples of what you were doing for families here in Montgomery. And that really helps your case, and it helps people to understand that there is an organization such as yours doing this work in the community, because I can tell you there are people that don't know that we have an organization that would actually work with families the way you're working with families to correct problems within them. So, you know, if you haven't considered it already, my suggestion is that you go back to that format and at least once a year do an annual report to the community, to everybody, highlighting what you've done that year and the effects that you've had on truancy and on other issues that you address.
Absolutely. That is, you know me, that is on the agenda as of November 1st. I assumed the position. And having worked at helping families for 7 years from 2008 until, I guess, 2015, I am very familiar with what you're speaking of, and that is on our plan to do.
Where's the city and the MPS at with funding? Have they committed funding, and in what amount?
Yes. For MPS,
75,000.
thank you so much, because I neglected to bring it with me. And for the city, the contract reads 125. However, we have received the 110 at this point. And as I understand, before me last year, the same thing happened, but they came back and completed the contractual agreement of the 125. So we're hoping that is the case this year. And we are researching why we got 110 now. We got to come back and see what the delay is on the 15,000, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Because MPS reduced the funding.
They reduced it,
one
yeah,
time a few years
and then
ago.
dragged their feet on that.
But if I can say about that, having worked at Helping Families before and being back now, Dr. Williamson and I have been talking since November. We are establishing a very good working relationship. We meet bi-weekly, and I think we're on a good track. And, you know, I have my supervisor here. We're rebooting, and I think my thing is we're putting in the work now, and I'm hoping that we can work to reclaim some of those funds that they provided previously.
I can tell you that in a conversation with Dr. Brown, you have a friend in the superintendent. He really understands and appreciates the work that goes into that.
Yeah, thank you.
And I know you do a monthly report to the school system. You're always welcome to come here on a quarterly basis, a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Give us a little update.
Absolutely. And we are working on that. We are rebooting and rebuilding and going back to some ways of old that worked and were very effective, as has been indicated. And we're a work in progress. We just want to continue to have you all support moving forward.
All right. Any other questions? Next agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item to be considered is a resolution of the Montgomery County Commission to approve Phase 3 of the Montgomery Thrive Investment Initiative. This would approve the omnibus budget that was discussed at the last meeting. Like I said, Terry and Susan are traveling and hope to join us remotely.
Is there any questions from the commission?
Did we discuss that at the last meeting, Mr. Chairman? Or did we receive that information via email?
We discussed it at the December the 28th meeting.
Oh, that meeting, okay. You know, at those particular meetings where the city and the county both have representative there, I'm not even sure how that gets on an official agenda, because everybody's talking, we're talking stuff back and forth, and there's no formal vote on any of it at those particular meetings. So I'm always a little concerned about how we end up having these items on a formal agenda when most of that conversation, and the way I'm looking at it, is just general conversation.
I believe the city's voting on the same resolution this evening.
Yeah.
I can't support it. I was at the last meeting, and these things came up as suggestions. There was no discussion. There's several items on there that I could never support. And to be clear, when we started this process, it was never my understanding that the entire $43 million would be put into this pot to be shared. It was always my understanding that there would be funds left over, that we would dedicate up to a certain number to that project. This plan, this Part 3, spends all of the money, and it's going to certain places that I don't recall a conversation on. I recall a suggestion being made at the end of the meeting about the 2 hospitals, and there were a couple other things that were just scanned over. There was really no discussion, and I got an email asking me to comment on that particular proposal. Proposal it was, and they were looking for comments, and then it would be considered. I haven't had a chance to do my comments. And here it is, they're asking to be placed on the agenda. And I don't see how the city can vote on it either. Because they were there, they got the same information that I got. There's been no discussion on that Part 3 that I can recall now.
Because
I can't support it.
I was concerned, Mr. Chairman, as well, and I spoke with some of the city council members, and they were not aware. Well, they didn't have anything of this nature when I spoke with them, so I'm always a little concerned about how we get stuff that they don't have and vice versa when it's supposed to be a joint initiative. A number of items here, the $1 million to $2 million each for both Jackson and Baptist. I'm not really sure whether I know, there are a few people saying that they are suffering financially, and I suppose that may be the case, but you know, they got millions of dollars through the CARES Act to address issues related to the pandemic. And so I would certainly be interested in seeing their budget and maybe even hearing from the CEOs of those 2 healthcare facilities in terms of what they really need and what type of equipment do they plan to spend this $2 million each on. It concerns me. A number of things on here, even the Trails project. I mean, you know, I didn't vote for it, but you know, that's $6 million, and that seems to be more for economic development. And I'm concerned that we may not be meeting some of the Treasury guidelines with some of these projects in terms of allocating this money. But thank goodness we have a full-time legal counsel now. We can talk more about this.
Well, you know, I don't think anybody, and I've certainly not me, anybody's going to agree with everything on the list. I don't know if we could ever get a total of 14 people to ever agree on everything on this list. But this was just a way, I think, to kind of move forward so we can start vetting some of these things out and move forward with something. And if we don't have to vote on this week, next week, or 2 weeks from now, we can go back and meet again and talk again and try to get a more, if I understand what you're asking, get a more direct, this is what we're going to do exactly with this amount of money.
But the conversation is ongoing,
I know,
Mr. Chairman.
I agree.
Because the last email, it actually invites conversation. And without having a conversation, it's on the work agenda to go on the next agenda. That's a bum rush.
Yeah, did
That's what it
anybody-
is.
Florence, can we have a point of clarification with regard to the purpose of the resolution? My memory, when we've done a past resolution, the purpose of this does say potentially obligate and expend. The purpose of the resolution, I thought initially, was once the resolution was passed, then the idea could be researched further. The resolution, correct me if I'm wrong, is not us saying this is how we are going to spend the money, period. The resolution is saying these are categories of interest that we want to look into deeper. Is this worth moving forward? Yes, okay, then we move forward and then all parties dig deeper.
Correct.
But this isn't a final decision.
Wait a minute, read it, I read it. It's not a final decision what it is, but you're committing to these projects. The only thing to be talked about is how they're gonna be accomplished. You're committing to these ideas, and the next conversation is how we're gonna do them.
But-
We did the same
yeah.
thing with phase 1, and we did the same thing with phase 2, and now this is being put in, with phase 1 and phase 2 being mentioned in this agreement. What I'm saying is a conversation on that last phase 3, that conversation, we had the same conversation I'm asking that we have on this, on the first 2, we have on this one, because those, at the end of the last meeting we had, we were throwing out ideas, and somebody threw out Baptist, somebody threw out this, and they were gonna compile them, send them out to us, and solicit our response to them. I got that email. I haven't had a chance to respond. So we're still in the middle of a conversation on those as far as I'm concerned. And like I said, what it obligates you to do, what it does is, it sets, this is what we're gonna do. Now, the next thing we're gonna be talking about is how we're gonna do it. Just like Caristar, just like we had to come back. The first one, we didn't spend the money then, but we said this is what we're gonna do, and then we had to figure out how we're gonna do it, put the bids out and do all that stuff. No, we're not there with that part 3 as far as I'm concerned.
Is Terry and Susan on the call?
Susan is on the call, but for some reason is not.
What does potentially obligate mean? That's what, because it says in there potentially obligate.
Well, you know, for any of these projects, you've come back with they have presented a specific resolution, like with the broadband study, you approve moving forward, we've done the RFP, so they are preparing a final contract that will be approved to bring that vendor on board. And then that vendor will do that assessment. And then what happens, after that assessment is another vote for the city and the county to take.
Yeah, so the final vote is after they do all the assessments and we make that final vote.
This allows the process to move forward to develop plans, much like what you said, what services need to be delivered, if delivered, that sort of
We're
thing.
not, and I still stand by what I said, we're not there with that part 3. We haven't done it. I know I haven't said everything I want to say on it.
Well, we don't have to move forward yet. We can reconvene again and meet again and try to answer some of these questions.
Mr. Chairman,
And when they receive all our responses, I mean, that's what we hired them for.
Yeah.
They're gonna get the responses, and then they're gonna know how everybody feel about these various items, and they can get a list that's how you get a list that everybody agree on.
Now, have we responded? Has anybody responded yet? I haven't.
I have. I questioned about the $2 million for Baptist and Jackson Hospital.
Okay.
Because I know when we were talking and Baptist and Jackson was put out, and I said medical for the rural and the west side, the CISP was talking about something a little different. And I talked to Commissioner Sankey, and I talked about it, and I explained it to him because he asked me to elaborate. And I talked about maybe having some type of emergency facility in that area, not necessarily just making sure Baptist and Jackson, I agree with him on this, that we need to look and see what Baptist and Jackson Hospital received during the COVID outbreak.
Susan, is that you trying to get on?
I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you loud and clearly now.
Okay, great. Yeah, Commissioner Harris, I understand what you're saying, and we did solicit some response, but this is a very preliminary resolution, like Chairman Singleton was saying. Whenever you choose to vote on this resolution, there will be another time to vote on any of these projects. And if you don't want a project, you don't have to have it. This lets us look into, we have to have some direction from y'all. So when, y'all are the folks deciding how this money is spent. Our responsibility is to make sure that the money is spent according to the Treasury guidance. So these were some items that were brought forward. You don't have to obligate any of this money to these projects in the future. This lets us go out and bring something back that you can review that's more concrete. So, for instance, when you're asking, what is Baptist going to spend this money on? What is Jackson going to spend this money on? We'll go find that out. We'll come back and we'll talk about that. And if you don't want to go forward in potentially obligating money for Baptist and Jackson, you don't have to.
But we have.
So same with
Susan.
Same with the other programs that are listed in the resolution. We restated what you'd already given us the opportunity to review and to go out and look at. And that's what's in phase. Some of those have actually come back for the second time in phase 1 and phase 2. But there's another opportunity to decide if you even want to move forward on the project. This just gives us an opportunity to check out some of the projects that either city councilors or county commissioners have offered up.
Are you done?
I'm through, Commissioner Harris. I'm sorry.
We're not even at a point where we know whether or not we want to study the Baptist,
Okay.
the money to Baptist. That list is it's premature, this list is. And why do we need to vote on it anyway? The other two items that are mentioned, just to be saying something, we've already decided that, we've already allocated the funds. And then this list, nobody's agreed on that, there's no consensus on that list. The list that come before us in any kind of a proposal, resolution should have some consensus, some degree of it, and should have had already some discussion. This is not the way you provoke discussion. When it comes here to this point, the discussion has already been made, and these are items that we really want you to look into. I don't think there's a consensus that anybody wants you to look into those hospital payments. And there's some other items on there. We've already given the YMCA $6 million, and they're on there for another couple of million. I mean, the things like that should have never been before us on a list, on a resolution for us, without the kind of discussion that I'm having to have in public, at a meeting. That's my point, because that other stuff is just redundancy. We already know about phase 1 and phase 2. I don't know, why do we need to have a resolution on that again? And then the other third part, it's a bum rush to me.
I apologize for that. I wanted to put in the phase 1 and phase 2 for clarity so that people understood. I didn't want it to be out of context. So I apologize for that, Commissioner Harris. And I was under the impression that we could at least just move forward on these things. That we haven't received any response to our email. And I understand that we just might not have had time.
You really haven't. I got it last week.
We'll look for that. We'll look for those emails. But we were not under the impression that there was objection to things. I apologize for that.
Well, let's just hold up then. We'll hold up, and Susan, we'll reconvene, and we'll try to narrow these down a little bit more.
We hope we've never given you the impression that we're trying to bum rush anyone. We receive, requests from commissioners and city councilors for us to check into programs or to add programs. And we try to do that. We constantly send out lists of programs that other cities and counties have checked into and looked at. And we don't want you to ever think that we're trying to bum rush anybody, but I will say this. We have to have this money obligated, which means under contract, by the end of 2024. And we may never get the kind of consensus of unanimity on these projects. And at some point, if we don't move forward and obligate these funds, we will have to return them. And nobody wants that. So I'm happy, available. Terry and I are happy and available to come at any time and discuss any of these matters, either privately or in a joint meeting as we have before. But we certainly don't want anyone to feel that we have, done anything that we want to bum rush anyone for sure, Commissioner Harris. I apologize that that's how this has come off. That is not what we're trying to do.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
did I have the right understanding about the amount of funds that we were going to commit to this project, to this joint effort? I mean, was it always your understanding that?
It was always we was gonna split
the entire
it.
amount?
I think that was Chairman Dean's agreement and Chairman Dean's thought that we would split entire 44 million that we got.
I don't think that was ever explicitly stated or decided upon.
It may not have been, I guess.
There's been a lot of assumptions that it would be 100%, or a lot of assumptions that maybe it would evolve, but I don't know. I don't recall that ever being a firm decision.
And that from Mayor Reed's discussion that he had with Elton when we first got the money, it was Elton's idea, we serve the same constituents, basically, 90-something%.
Yeah, but I think I made a statement at the first meeting.
We don't have to.
But, I mean, I made a statement at the first meeting that there would be funds left over, and nobody said otherwise. And I thought, I left there, and Rhonda's right, there was never any real agreement on it.
Yeah,
But that was my thought process, and I made it known at that meeting, the first meeting up at the judges' chambers. That was never my commitment, my thought to make that kind of commitment. Because, what I'm seeing, quite frankly, at the end of this thing is a whole lot of downtown redevelopment, all these things being thrown into this process that there's no way I'll ever agree to. This money wasn't intended for that. The people that this money was intended for haven't seen one spade of dirt moved to their benefit. And I got to see that happen. I got to see that happen. And these things that's going to help develop business, hey, I support business, believe me. But the return on the investment that the people that actually spend the money to provide the sales tax that run this county, they got to get a return on their investment too.
I agree.
We have to invest in these communities, and there's not enough of that being done.
I agree, 100%. We first did we had all the 4 or 5 subcommittees, and we came back from those subcommittees, the ideas that were developed from those subcommittees, when we added all of those up, it didn't even add up to 85 million. I was shocked that we didn't even add up to it. But again, I'm not leading the charge on this because, again, in my district, if you look on here, you don't really see anything happening in my district outside of ambulance service. So
but somebody had to ask.
I'm sword on this thing. This ain't me.
Somebody had. Who asked for this, Susan? Who asked for this type of proposal to come before us today?
Well, we talked about it at on the December.
No.
28th
Who asked
meeting.
for it, Susan? Because I didn't.
Well, we put together what we thought were the ideas that people had come to us with. Now, some of those came in the meeting and some of them came individually.
And you said to us, you said to somebody, this needs to go on before the commission to be voted on?
I do not decide that. This is, this is a resolution that reflected what was told to us. So
Somebody
that's
had to
your
ask for the
decision,
resolution.
Commissioner Harris.
Somebody asked for the resolution. Who did?
My
Well,
guess.
leadership asked for the resolution, and we always provide resolutions when we are gonna vote. We're drafting these resolutions, but they reflect what we've been asked to do.
I figured that, but nobody's saying they did it. Nobody's saying they asked you to do it. I guess, it's just a big voice, like your voice came out of the ceiling and said, draft it and send it to them.
We are simultaneously asking our consultants to hurry up and slow down.
No, that ain't-
We
that's not-
fuss at meeting after meeting after meeting, nothing's getting done, nothing's getting done. Why are y'all dragging your feet? You're working too slow. So then they, are proposing things that doesn't commit us to anything, but is an effort, I believe, to hurry up a little conversation. Let's make it real. Let's put it on paper and make some decisions. So again, we're simultaneously fussing at them for going too slow and fussing at them for going too fast. Ultimately, the buck stops with us, the 5 commissioners sitting up on this dais.
Exactly.
The buck stops with us. What are we doing in between our county commission meetings? What are we doing in between these Thrive meetings? Are we making the phone calls? Are we doing the research? Are we finding information? Are we putting proposals together? Or are we just sitting here being reactive when something is brought before us? And I see us being more reactive than proactive. Last thing I'll say is, Commissioner Harris, I don't think the spirit was ever that we were going to spend 100% of this jointly.
Yeah, because
Thank you.
even,
I don't-
even,
I don't
with-
believe
yeah.
it.
I don't think that, I mean,
I don't
but,
believe
but
it.
again, that was just the spirit. I don't feel like that was hard and fast. But again, it stops and starts with us. What are we doing? How hard are we working, the 5 of us? Or how much are we
But-
fussing and reacting about what other people are doing?
Yeah, that's, to a certain extent, that's true, but well, I'll just leave it like it is. We're not gonna push this forward. There's gonna be some more discussion on it, and in the future, I'd like to know when we've decided stuff like this, and when we're asking for a resolution, I'd like to know that. When I get an email telling me to respond to something and asking me how I think about something, I don't expect to see it on the agenda without having another conversation about it. That's all I'm saying about that, but I was trying to get to who is this leadership group that's driving all these things?
I think it's the 14 people fussing that there's not been any shovels in the ground. I think that's
Well, I'm gonna tell you
I
something.
think that's
I'm tell you
what
something.
they're
I
reacting
never-
to is
well, I'm
we
one of
get
them.
up here during our meetings and fuss that nothing's been done, so they're like, okay, well, let's do something. So
Well,
let's push this along.
I'm one
Because
of
we're,
them.
the 14 of us,
No dirt.
we have all the blame on us. It's the 14 of us that are or are not getting this done.
And we're not turning any dirt. We keep talking, and I'm a person about action, and I'm new to the board, and I'm trying to learn everything, but at this point, we are not, you got this water and sewage, and I'm getting called every day about it, and the drainage in my area, and there's nothing happening. And then I gotta explain to them why there's nothing happening. And we coming back and forth to the board. Somebody gotta make a decision, and let's go ahead and get this started working for the people. We've got to make some decisions for the people and do what we're supposed to do and get it for our constituents to get us going. We've got to. We can't keep going back and forth on who wrong, who shot John, and who didn't. We got to get some work done.
So Susan, on this omnibus package here, potentially obligate really don't mean much at all, right?
No,
It means just,
no,
it
it
means
gives
just
us
what
an
it says.
opportunity.
It means just what it says.
Yeah.
You can obligate 0. You can take these programs and say, we don't want to bring that one back up. But it does give us the opportunity to move in a direction to get you the information that you would need to make those decisions. So these are the programs that were talked about and recommended to us. We want to look at those programs and then potentially bring some back to you. We can continue to have discussions individually, like I said, in joint meetings, however you would like to do this. But to the Commissioner's point, we need to move, as I said, this money has to be obligated by 2024, and we're in 2023. And that means at the contracting stage. So if we come back and find that we don't, here are the things that Jackson and Baptist are going to spend this money on, and you guys say, no, we don't want to do that. You don't have to. We will then have the information for you to make that decision. No, we don't want to do it for Jackson and Baptist. We want a different health response. Okay, great. We will go work on that. But these are the programs that were suggested to us. We will come back with information about these with harder numbers, and you can choose to obligate or not obligate at that time.
So, Susan, Commissioner Harris, if we move forward with this and put it on the next agenda, we can vote on the next agenda on whether or not we want to approve the omnibus.
I'm not voting on, I don't think we ought to put it on the next agenda. It's not ready. The items that need to be voted on have been voted on.
Now, see what, we met on the 28th and we talked about a bunch of things on the 28th. Then Susan, when I got the email, there were some extra things added that
Right.
I didn't add.
There's four things on there.
I'm not saying I'm
that-
against them or for them either way, but there were some things added. I think that's where a little bit of the confusion, because I kept
Sure,
really good
and-
notes. That
And there's a whole other, there's a whole other body that gets to add things.
Yes.
And we can
exactly.
separate those out if you'd like.
Yeah, so,
A whole other body.
The city council.
City council.
You know, some of these
Well,
may be
no,
city
they were
council.
in the meeting.
they were in the meeting, but
Yeah,
some
that's
things
right.
came after the meeting.
And
that-
then that's
Yeah.
the part, and then it comes to us to vote on. I mean, voting is committing to me, and you say a lot of things, but the truth of the matter is that we are spending money and we are moving forward on the types of things that are not affecting the people that need to be affected. And that's my fear. That's what I'm about. It's not true that we're not spending this money and that we're not committing this money, and that we're doing that. But we're doing it in areas that are not really getting to the people that I think the money was intended to get to. And the types of projects, the sewer project, the
The
community
sewer
center
project is the sewer project is in procurement. So it's on its way to spending money.
But you understand what I'm saying? It's not necessarily true that we're not moving forward with spending money, because that we've obligated the money, and these people, if they don't have the check already, it's in the mail. So what I'm saying is, so I don't have a problem with us. We could spend this money in that time, but there's two issues that need to be addressed. One of them is that list. That list needs to be looked at and make sure there's enough agreement in order for us to vote, do a resolution on. And the other thing is for us to decide how much of what we have left we want to commit to this joint venture. Because a lot of this stuff, if the city want it done, if the city want the Coliseum fixed, they can fix it. If the city want downtown renovated, they can fix it. If they want some help from us, they can come to us for a different pot of money. This money was not intended for that.
Well, let's,
Mr. Chairman, we've been
Yes, sir.
talking a long time
Yeah.
about it. I certainly agree with Commissioner Harris, and I don't want to be grouped in that category of not being proactive. I'll give one specific example, and that's Madison Park, and I continue to talk about that. I've done everything I possibly could to get that process moving. We've been meeting with them people, wasting their time seemingly, and they've been certainly open to do whatever we ask them to do, to provide feedback, to complete surveys, whatever they've been asked to do, they've done that. And the last time we met, it was over 100 and some people out in Madison Park under a tent on a hot day, trying to make sure that they were served through this process that we've created. And all we did as a result of that was say we're going to do a study to see what the study says, and we already know what the needs are. So we're wasting time. We're not moving forward, and I'm concerned about that. First, we say we need to slow down, as Commissioner Walker said. Then we say we need to speed up. But it seems like, and again, we are, as Commissioner Harris said, we have a couple of projects that supposedly we're spending money on, but I'm just concerned that the more we waste time, the more our consultants benefit and the less the community get in terms of helping them to mitigate the negative impacts of COVID. And that's with all due respect.
okay, well, we have to make a choice. Do we want to move this to the next agenda or not?
Not in the omnibus form, no.
Okay, all right, so we'll hold up and we'll reconvene, Susan. We probably need to have another joint meeting pretty soon.
Okay.
And everybody needs to be prepared to come to that meeting, and let's leave that meeting on the same page. Everybody's on board. Nothing changes after the meeting. Nobody adds anything or takes anything off. So, all right.
That was right.
Florence, we are running over time. How much more have we got today?
We have several items. One is a waived rule item for an appointment to the Montgomery County Board of Human Resources. The board, the local county board, has requested that they submitted the name of someone that they would like to see serve on that board. And Vice Chairman Sankey asked that we waive rules to expedite that. This is an appointment that the city must also approve.
And the reason I'm asking for that, fellow commissioner, is because apparently this was something that was discussed back in November. All of the board members for the local county DHR board agreed to this particular individual. The one who we appointed previously, Dr. Davis May, she went on sabbatical to Ethiopia for a year. She was an instructor over at the University of Alabama State University in social work department, and she took a sabbatical to Ethiopia, and they're recommending that we allow the individual that I sent you the resume on to be appointed in her place, and I think all the DHR board members agree on that.
Okay, any objection to waiving rules on that item?
No objections from me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, next one.
We have an alcohol license application for a special retail more than 30 days.
Next agenda.
Membership dues to the Montgomery Area Business Committee for the Arts.
That'd be next agenda.
And then we have a lease agreement with the town of Pike Road to house the Montgomery County Extension Service. Their current lease expires the end of June.
Mr. Chairman, I was just a little concerned about that. I do understand that the current facilities are not adequate in terms of space. I understand that the building's been leaking for a long time, and this comes from some of the employees. But they're also concerned that a move to Pike Road would be a hardship for those individuals who are currently employed at the Extension Service on the Atlanta Highway, that traveling to Pike Road is going to be excess mileage. And not only that, but they tell me that they're concerned about the clientele that is served at the current location having to drive all the way to Pike Road. And I just thought I would bring that up, and then perhaps I see Mr. Smitherman is here with your permission. Maybe he can address some of those concerns.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning. Please excuse me, I had knee surgery, so I'm limping a little bit. The issue with the employees moving to the Pike Road facility, most of our staff do not do their programming within the office. Most of our staff go off-site to do their programming. We have 2 FNEP agents. They've never had a program in the office that I'm aware of. We've got SNAP Ed agents, never done a program in the office. Now, there are some programs that are carried on in that office, and if we had a better auditorium in the current office, we would probably have more programs, but because that auditorium is not ideal, we choose to go to other sites. There'll always be some contention. If you get 10 people in a room and ask them a question, you'll get some different feelings from each of the 10. So I don't know that we'll ever get a unanimous approval from the employees to go out there, but
Jimmy, how many staff members do you have show up to the office routinely every day of the week, Monday through Friday?
my 2 FNEP folks usually are in the office every day. They check in. I have 2 admins, that, secretarial type individuals. We call them administrators or admins now. They're in the office every day. I'm in the office every day. And then I have REAs being regional extension agents that serve multiple counties, that will come into the office periodically.
Just the people that are in there daily, so 4 people that basically come to the office every day?
That'd be 5.
Including you?
That's including me, yes.
Every day, so 4 employees plus you, day to day to day?
They're there every day,
So
pretty
we're
much for
talking
8
about-
hours.
Okay, yeah.
And like you said, Jimmy, there's always gonna be some inconvenience for somebody whenever you move facilities, but the benefits that this facility offers as far as agriculture and farming and education, I think it outweighs so many of the negatives that could possibly be there, so.
Yes, sir. I
Anybody got
believe
any
you're
other
correct.
questions?
Jimmy, while you're there, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
What's the square footage that you're gonna be using out at Pike Road?
Commissioner, I'm sorry to say that I do not have that number in my head.
What's the square footage of the place that you're at?
I think the square footage we have is somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 square feet.
Anybody know the square footage that we're about to lease at Pike Road?
I don't have that with
There
me.
may be a little less square footage at Pike Road inside,
Inside the building.
but outside, you've got
Outside, that's what they were saying.
20, 30 acres of
Right.
area there. And I've been to your office inside now, you're not cramped in there at all.
Right.
No, sir.
They're not gonna be using no 20, 30 acres.
Well, that's
I
for
get- But
farming.
what I'm getting at, the rent is the same. Are we getting the same for the rent? Is what I'm talking about. I mean, per square foot, the per square foot cost on the Atlanta Highway has to be substantially more than the square foot cost on Trotman Road. And we're moving to a smaller building, but yet they want the same money. That's my concern, and that's what I'm asking. What's the square footage you're gonna be using out there compared to what you have here, and what we're paying here, and what they want us to pay there?
Right.
Commissioner Harris, what you will find out on Pike Road is that if you want to have a garden, it's hard to have it on the asphalt on Atlanta Highway in the parking lot. They have, if you're just looking at square footage under roof, that's not what they do. They provide opportunities, education, teach people out there. They can actually show people
Yes, sir.
how to plant a garden and have a
Well,
garden
they're doing that now, Doug.
in the parking lot of Atlanta Highway.
No, they're not doing it in the parking lot, but they're
We're
doing
doing
it.
it off-site.
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 Right,
From
and
what I
they
understand,
will
they wanna do
continue
it-
to do it off-site, according to what he just said.
No, you would not, now, according to me, you want to bring a lot of things on site. Am I not correct?
Yes, ma'am. We would do a lot more if we were out there. Now, I'm not a real estate agent, but the building that we're currently in is over 50 years old, and we patched the roof, or I asked the current, the right word, leaseor, is that the right word? I contact Grant Sullivan about 6 times a year to come fix the roof where we're at, due to leaks. That building's 50 years old. The building we're moving into is less than 2 years of age. So I don't know how that plays into the value of square footage rental prices.
We need to know that. We need to know what we're paying a square foot, and if we're paying market. I mean, you know, the law requires we pay market.
And I'm sorry, I don't have that.
Well, I mean,
I don't have that number in my
It's
head.
just such a hurry to get the move done, you know, and we just want to do it. But let's do it like we do everything else, and consider all that we're going to consider. I'm not opposed to it. The people that my constituents who were opposed to it, they're falling off. They're out.
Yes, sir.
They've withdrawn their opposition, Jimmy.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you.
What I'm talking about is strictly business. It's strictly what we look at when we spend county money,
I understand.
you know, and I'm not willing to jump over it to get this done.
Yes, sir. I understand your concern.
So Jimmy, Mr. Chairman, the clientele that you all serve, anybody coming to the Atlanta Highway, the clientele that is being served, that would have to go to Pike Road for whatever services that they may be getting currently at the current location, rather?
There are trade-offs. You know, if you think about our agricultural clientele, we're closer to them when we're in Pike Road than we are on the Atlanta Highway. If you think about our urban clients that are right within the city limits of Montgomery, yes, they're a little closer. But the distance from the Atlanta Highway facility to the Pike Road facility is 13 miles. You know, I can't place a value judgment on is 13 miles a limiting factor or not. Some folks just like to be closer to home than they, you know, or to travel a little ways. But we're currently having some meetings out there, and we haven't seen our clientele numbers drop off because of our meetings that are agriculturally related.
And just for clarification, in terms of the staff, did you say that the staff is not required to come unless they want to, in terms of actually reporting to work from day to day?
The regional extension agents that work in our office, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 REAs that work out of our office. they are not required to be at the office at 7:30 in the morning and stay there till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. No, sir. They serve Watauga and Elmore counties, and some of them even serve a few other counties north of that. But they have to have a home office, and Montgomery happens to be their home office.
Thank you.
Okay,
Other questions?
no, thank you.
And I'll be glad to talk to each of you individually or address you again if need be.
Commissioner Harris, we'll get all those answers to your questions, in the next agenda. Lawrence, we got
As-
some board member appointments.
Yes,
I think one's for Katoma, that's Carmen's, one for North, that's Commissioner Vice Chairman Sankey. Pike Road's got one, that's mine. Pilgrim Providence is mine. Quentin Moore Water Authority. I don't know what Quentin Moore Authority is. Is that yours, Vice
I
Chairman
don't know
Sankey?
anything about it. I think North Montgomery is the only one.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that, Quentin Moore.
That's in my district, never mind. Quentin Moore, I've never heard it called Quentin Moore, but,
Where is it at?
somewhere in the unincorporated areas, but I've never heard it called Quentin Moore. I've got some water authorities, but that's not one of them, but, the other one, Rolling Hills is mine, South Montgomery is mine, and Wall Mount Meigs, is mine also, so can we just move all of those to the next agenda for time's sake? Any opposition doing that? And we'll come up with some appointments between now and the next agenda, is that okay?
I have no
Yeah,
problem.
aren't they all recommending reappointment?
Yeah, so it's fairly simple.
I'm all right.
Okay.
They're
Just
not
for
in my
time's
district.
sake, there's about 7 of them there, so. And is that all, Florence?
yes, sir.
Let's take a quick 3-minute recess, and we'll be right back since we're running behind time. We apologize. No more.